Welcome back to GlobeTrotting, trying to push 50,000. Be sure to hit that button if you haven't already. Selecting a new wide-body aircraft as an airline is far from easy, and it will typically involve years of analysing before a firm decision can be made, with several options often being put forward as well. The search for a wide-body aircraft at India's IndiGo has been a colossal effort, with the search beginning even before the global pandemic. Yes, this has been a long time in the making, and it's had its many twists and turns, with the pandemic I speak of, yes, derailing the plans to add the wide-body fleet to the mix, potentially as early as they would have liked. Despite this, the airline persisted and said that they would place an order when the time was right, and as part of that search, aircraft manufacturers Airbus and Boeing were tasked to put forward their best pitches, hoping to win over what would be a highly lucrative contract. The prospective wide-body order would represent the first and be hugely important for the airline, as they had yet to order an aircraft of that size. The 787, A350, and even at times the A330neo were all put forward at different stages in the search for the aircraft, with IndiGo then being tasked to deliberate and decide what would be best for them. It did, to a certain extent, feel like an eternity, with many question marks over just what aircraft would be selected, but eventually IndiGo came to a decision, with at the end of April this year, the airline ordering up to 100 of the Airbus A350 aircraft to support its future fleet, really focusing on key elements of the business that I will get into. The deal includes 30 firm orders for the 350-900, with first deliveries expected in 2027, but one of the more noteworthy things to consider about this aircraft order is the options included in the deal, which tally for 70 more, which means the total reaches that 3-digit figure, and showcases what the company hopes to achieve with the aircraft for the long term. If it sees success with the wide-body, it may very well go on to look to activate some of these purchase options and grow its fleet outwards past the initial 30 mark. But why the A350 over other alternatives? Well, let me begin with the capabilities of this aircraft. It is pitted as the middle ground and a plane that offers any airline that chooses it the opportunity to not just have capacity at its side, but also the ability to utilize the range to make sure they can reach markets right around the world. That is one of the main reasons why IndiGo needs an aircraft such as the A350. Yes, it has been a company that has cemented itself as a leader in the Indian aviation scene in the last couple of years especially, but it is slowly but surely venturing further away from its home country, and this is something it would like to continue doing. Thanks to these increases in distances between cities that are served on the route map, the airline sees the potential to add not just more aircraft to its mix, but specifically wide bodies, and not doing so just through a lease. The international network is one of the airline's long-term focuses, and this has been something they've not absolutely been shy of discussing in quite a fair bit of detail. There's a lot of competition in that market when you also consider that Air India is looking to return to be one of the leaders in the industry. It is going to be highly competitive for the years to come, and the A350 is seen not just as a modern aircraft, but something that will truly be able to elevate IndiGo into a world-class airline, and also hopefully look to improve your overall customer satisfaction levels. I know a lot of this video is meant to cover IndiGo, but what does the A350 order actually mean for Airbus? It's another factor that is worth considering. Well, such a purchase is really important for the aircraft manufacturer. As I touched on right at the beginning of this video, this contract was always going to be highly lucrative. It is the Indian aviation market at the end of the day. This is growing like there is no tomorrow. Huge levels of demand, and aircraft manufacturers want to pounce. They want to be able to offer as many aircraft as they humanly can to these key markets where they're seeing fantastic results. We saw We saw the first domino fall earlier last year when Air India announced a deal with Airbus that would include hundreds of narrow and wide-body jets. And yes, while IndiGo has purchased up to 100 A350 jets, it is not their first order for Airbus aircraft in, say, the last 12 months. They also purchased what was labelled as the largest single-aisle aircraft order in history for A320neo family jets. By IndiGo selecting the A350, Airbus will be able to increase production rates for the wide-body comfortably and further extend their presence in a market that is, like I said, incredibly lucrative. A fascinating prospect for Airbus, no doubt, to consider and something definitely worth pursuing is extending their presence further past India into other areas around Asia where you have major airlines that are considering the next step of their own business model, and that would involve purchasing new aircraft. No doubt Airbus would like to leverage its already successful position in India and push that forward to more neighbouring countries and then your respective airlines. As for IndiGo's purchase and selection of Airbus, some also argue it was just the natural decision for what is an ever-growing airline, and while there were other options in the market, this was always going to be the best. I touch on that because of the significant purchase in 2023 for those A320neo family jets. For IndiGo, they could have gone to the 787 Dreamliner, and I'll get a little bit more into why they may not have selected this wide body shortly, but Airbus would have probably felt that they were always in the leading position to secure this deal, as IndiGo would just come back for more. If it wasn't going to be the A330neo, then they were certainly going to put forward their A350. Once delivered later this decade, the aircraft will enable the launch of new routes, and on top of that, it'll also be a very important aircraft to boost capacity into markets that require more seating, something IndiGo has been pretty much limited to in recent times. Like I said, I've been focusing a lot on Airbus, and rightly so, because they won the contract from IndiGo, but why did maybe Boeing not get a sniff at the deal? The reasons behind not selecting Boeing haven't been publicly disclosed. Of course, this goes for any aircraft order. If IndiGo had selected, hypothetically, the 787, well, they probably wouldn't have gone on to say why the A350 wasn't selected or the A330neo, but there are many visible reasons why they may pick one over the other. While the airline could have introduced the 787, there are significant benefits to sticking with the one manufacturer, but really there's also some pretty hefty risks. An airline needs to weigh up whether they believe it is worth it sticking with the one manufacturer across narrow and wide body fleets, and this is something we see right around the world. Take a look at Starlux, that relies heavily on Airbus for their narrow and wide body aircraft types. Take a look at upcoming Riyadh Air, who are also looking to rely on narrow body and wide body offerings from the single manufacturer. While Boeing could have offered a lucrative deal, when an airline also selects an aircraft, it's pretty essential to understand that they need to factor in when these planes will be made available. Will they align with their plans regarding, say, route commencements, maybe retiring aircraft types, funding, or something exterior? It could very well be that Airbus provided a better delivery slate for IndiGo with regards to the 350. That's going to conclude today's analysis. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you believe IndiGo's purchase of the A350 was the right decision, or are you leaning on the 787 being a better choice? Thanks a lot for your support. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you in a couple of days for your latest industry analysis. And we'll fly.